Angel Reese had 9 turnovers. Yo, listen, y'all got to stop with this point forward foolishness, man. Let's take a look, man. Hold on, man. Y'all be wildin'. Y'all be wildin', son. Bruh, come on, man. Y'all gotta stop. Y'all gotta stop, yo.
The season was supposed to be Angel Reese's rise to greatness. Instead, it ended in disaster. WNBA fans aren't holding back. What started as a media-fueled hype train quickly turned into a slow-motion collapse, one turnover at a time. Her games weren't just off, they were hard to watch. And while the league tried to protect the narrative, the fans saw the truth.
In the entire WNBA and Angel Reese in garbage time. We saw it. Angel Reese last year against the Fever with like 2 minutes to go. She needed to, I think it was like 6 points and 3 rebounds. And she went and caught like 2 rebounds and then immediately goes at Victoria Saxton 3 times.
From wild passes to emotional outbursts, poor shot decisions to sideline drama, it wasn't long before social media exploded with brutal memes, sarcastic commentary, and full-on public roasting. Angel Reese didn't just disappoint, she became a walking contradiction. Praised like a star, playing like a liability.
Gets close to her during a box out, grabs her by her hips, and hip tosses her, throwing her to the ground. She stands up, she walks over to this opponent, bends over, screams in her face, and flips her the double bird. That's the WNBA gold. We're gonna get into it.
And now, with the season over and the excuses wearing thin, the backlash is hitting harder than ever. This wasn't just a bad stretch, it was a full-blown unraveling. And WNBA fans, they've seen enough. Let's break it down.
Like, there's absolutely no foul in that. She gets a good whistle, jumps up, and then goes at somebody on the other team. Who's she go at? She goes at Diamond Miller, her former Maryland teammate. And like, Angel's 1 tech off a suspension as well.
From the moment Angel Reese entered the WNBA, the media machine went into overdrive. She was dubbed the future of the league, a generational talent, a star before she even touched the court. Her college legacy, championship pedigree, and social media presence made her the most talked about rookie in years.
Angel Reese would have surpassed the Rue from Waterloo in popularity. Now, I am not saying that her dozens of aliases would have passed Caitlin Clark, but Angel Reese herself, she definitely would have.
The league leaned into the hype, hard highlight reels, sponsorship deals, front page headlines. Angel wasn't just a player, she was a brand, and everyone from analysts to casual fans was told to believe that she would take the league by storm. But here's the thing about hype, it only works when it's backed up on the court. From the jump, Angel's game was shaky. Her shot selection was inconsistent, her handles looked raw, and her decision-making under pressure often crumbled. Yet the narrative never budged. After every rough game, the commentators found a silver lining. She's finding her rhythm, they said. She's adjusting to the pace, but fans watching the games saw something different. Missed layups, blown coverages, sloppy turnovers. The box scores couldn't hide the truth forever. The worst part, the numbers weren't even that bad at first glance. A few double-doubles here and there made it look like she was producing, but those who watched the games saw a player racking up rebounds after her own missed shots, padding stats in garbage time, and struggling to find flow in any real offensive set. The more minutes she played, the more obvious it became that the hype was outpacing the performance. As the losses piled up, so did the questions. Was Angel being used correctly? Was the system holding her back? Or was she simply not ready for? The pros, what started as cautious optimism, quickly turned into frustration. Fans flooded comment sections and forums, asking why she was still starting, why coaches kept pretending like everything was fine, and why no one in the media seemed willing to say what was obvious. Angel Reese was underperforming. Badly, the disconnect between the highlight packages and the in-game reality became too big to ignore. Clips of her turnovers went viral. Slow-motion replays of her blown assignments turned into memes. And as the season spiraled, so did the public patience. The fans weren't buying it anymore. They weren't hating, they were holding her accountable. That's what real fans do. And when a player is given the spotlight, the scrutiny comes with it. The league may have built a brand, but fans expected a baller. And as Angel's game continued to sputter, the backlash became louder, sharper, and impossible to ignore. What began as hype had now turned into humiliation, and the season had only just started to unravel. If there was one stat that defined Angel Reese's rookie season, it wasn't points or rebounds, it was turnovers. Game after game, she gave the ball away like it was part of the game plan. Loose passes, misread screens, awkward dribble drives. Into double teams, it felt like every time the ball touched her hands, fans held their breath for the wrong reasons, and they were right to. Some nights, it was 5. Other nights, 6 or 7. But the game that sealed her fate was the infamous 9-turnover meltdown. That wasn't just a bad night. That was a breaking point. 9 turnovers in a professional basketball game isn't just a rough stat, it's a warning siren, and fans heard it loud and clear. You could see it in the reactions. Comment threads blew up. Sports forums called it the worst performance of the season. Clips circulated of her throwing the ball into traffic, airballing post entries, and losing the handle without any pressure. And through it all, you could hear the frustration boiling over in real time. The tragedy here isn't just that Angel Reese turned the ball over. It's how she did it and how often. It wasn't a case of trying to make difficult plays. These weren't risky passes to thread the needle or high Q reads gone wrong. These were fundamental mistakes. Picking up the dribble too soon, skipping passes across the court with no spacing, and dribbling into defenders with no plan. It looked less like a rookie growing into the league and more like someone struggling to survive it. To make matters worse, the coaching staff didn't make any real adjustments. Instead of dialing back her playmaking role, they gave her more rope. Instead of simplifying her role, they let her freelance, and every mistake she made wasn't just a personal stumble, it hurt the entire team's rhythm. Teammates became hesitant. Spacing collapsed. Fast breaks for the opposing team became routine. It wasn't just turnovers. It was momentum-killing chaos. And yet, every post-game press conference seemed to deflect. She's learning. She's developing. She plays with heart. But fans weren't buying it. Not after watching possession after possession go up in smoke. Not after watching her chase after defenders after botching the play, committing fouls out of frustration, and slowing the team down. They weren't looking for perfection. They were looking for accountability, and it never came. By the time the turnover stats started trending online, the damage was done. The narrative was no longer in Angel's control. Fans were tired of excuses. They weren't being harsh, they were being honest. Because 9 turnovers isn't just a number, it's a mirror. And what they saw reflected back was a player with potential. Sure, but also a player not ready to lead, not ready to adapt, and certainly not ready to be the face of anything but a blooper reel. And still, somehow, it got worse. If the turnovers were bad, the sideline behavior was worse. Angel Reese didn't just struggle on the court, she brought the chaos with her to the bench, to the timeouts, and even to post-game interviews. What fans started seeing wasn't just a rookie having a rough stretch. It was a player unraveling in front of millions, unable to separate frustration from professionalism. And once that line blurred, the drama exploded. It all boiled over in that now viral moment, Angel slapping the clipboard out of a coach's hands during a timeout. The team was already down big. Emotions were high, but instead of regrouping and focusing, Reese lashed out, sending the clipboard flying and the internet into meltdown mode. The clip spread like wildfire. Fans didn't just criticize the act, they questioned the mindset. How can someone claim leadership and still act like this under pressure? And that wasn't an isolated moment. Game after game, the camera caught her barking at refs, mocking opponents, clapping in defenders' faces, and celebrating layups while the team trailed by double digits. At first, it was passed off as competitive fire. But fans weren't fooled. This wasn't swagger. It was deflection. It was a smokescreen to hide bad decisions, poor execution, and an inability to self-correct. When you're winning, that edge is admired. But when you're losing hand, playing poorly, it turns into parody. Every exaggerated flex, every stare down, every scream into the void came off more like insecurity than intensity. Fans watching at home started calling it out. She's more focused on the show than the score. Where's the awareness? She's doing victory dances with 6 turnovers and no assists. And the worst part, it didn't stop. There were no signs of growth, no moments of pulling back and resetting. Instead, every game felt like a rerun. The same errors, the same drama, the same refusal to take accountability. And while teammates tried to stay composed, the cracks showed. You could see it in their body language, in the way they avoided her. After another wild possession or E-rolled after another pointless confrontation, for a rookie, energy is expected. Emotions are allowed. But maturity, that's the separator. And Angel Reese, game after game, showed she wasn't ready to lead not by example, not by presence, and not by voice. Fans noticed the silence from teammates spoke volumes. And the laughter from opposing players during altercations said even more. What should have been a learning curve turned into a reality check. Angel wasn't growing. She was combusting, and fans didn't pile on because they disliked her. They were tired of watching talent get wasted behind tantrums. Every meltdown became a meme, every outburst a distraction. And the longer it went on, the clearer it became. The drama was no longer part of the game. It was the game, and everyone else was trying to play basketball while Reese acted like she was in a reality show. As Angel Reese's chaotic performances stacked up, fans began turning their attention not just to the player, but to the coaching staff. How could they not see what everyone else did? The constant turnovers, defensive lapses, wild decision-making, and sideline blow-ups weren't hidden. They were broadcasted live, clipped for social media, and discussed on every major sports outlet. And yet, game after game, Angel was still out there starting, getting heavy minutes, and receiving nothing but praise in press conferences. Many, it felt less like coaching and more like complicity. This wasn't about being tough on a rookie. It was about accountability. Every other player on that roster knew what was at stake. You mess up, you sit, you blow coverage, you get pulled. But not Angel. She was treated like a franchise piece before ever proving she could carry the weight. Fans weren't blind to it. They noticed the double standard. They saw teammates benched for a bad rotation, while Angel threw the ball into the stands for the 5th time and stayed in the game. Coaches tried to hide behind development narratives. She's learning, they said. We're building her confidence. But you can't build confidence on a foundation of delusion. When a player is struggling, the job of the coaching staff is to protect the team first, then the individual. But what played out looked like brand preservation, not basketball strategy. Letting her stay on the floor wasn't helping her grow, was enabling the worst. Parts of her game to flourish unchecked. Even worse, it created tension within the team. Players weren't just frustrated with losses, they were frustrated with the optics. Reese was handed the spotlight, but it was the veterans who had to clean up the mess. They hustled on defense, sacrificed their roles, and adapted to make up for Angel's inefficiencies. That's not development. That's damage. Control, and the coaches allowed it. There were moments where they could have stepped in. After the 9-turnover game, after the clipboard incident, after the altercation with an opponent that nearly led to suspension. But each time, the coaching staff stayed silent. No benching, no accountability, just vague support and recycled. Talking points, it was like they were hoping the problem would fix itself, but it didn't. It got worse. Fans started calling it out as performance art. Was this even coaching anymore? Was it just PR strategy? They weren't just losing games, they were losing credibility. Every time they trotted Reese back out there without consequences, they sent a message: brand over basketball, hype over honesty, and the players around her. They had to smile, nod, and keep playing, even as the team collapsed. In the end, coaches knew what was happening. They saw the tape, they lived the practices, but they chose not to act. And that silence, that's what hurt the most. Because when leaders refuse to lead, the entire locker room feels the weight. And so do the fans watching it all fall apart. On paper, Angel Reese's numbers looked respectable. Double-doubles here and there, a dozen rebounds, 14 points, a handful of blocks. For casual fans skimming box scores, it might seem like she was putting in work. But for those who actually watched the games, it quickly became clear. Those numbers were nothing but smoke and mirrors. A clever illusion that masked a season full of missed assignments, poor execution, and stat padding in moments that didn't matter. Let's start with the rebounds. Yes, Angel grabbed boards, but Most of them came from her own missed shots. She'd put up a wild layup, brick it, grab the board, and go back up only to miss again and grab another. That's not dominance, that's recycling. It's like cleaning up after your own mess and calling it productivity. Real impact on the glass is about boxing out, positioning, and denying second chances. Reese's rebounds were often a byproduct of chaos, not control. Her scoring, equally deceptive. Many of her points came in garbage time long after the game had already slipped out of reach. When the defense relaxed, when the opposing team was rotating bench players, that's when Angel padded the numbers. But when the game was close and the pressure was real, she disappeared. Shot selection became reckless. Her footwork fell apart. And the only thing consistent was her inability to finish strong at the rim. And then there's the lack thereof. Her shooting percentages hovered near the bottom of the roster. Turnovers frequently outpaced assists, and her plus-minus, a nightmare. It wasn't just that she wasn't helping the team win, it was that the team performed worse when she was on the floor, but none of that gets captured in a quick stat graphic on social media. The raw numbers 14 and 12 look impressive until you realize the context. They came with 6 turnovers, 4 blown layups, and a complete collapse in defensive communication. Yet the WNBA marketing engine kept rolling. Clips were trimmed to avoid the missteps. Only the made shots made it into highlight reels. Slow-motion edits with dramatic music painted her as a rising star. And to the uninformed fan, it worked. She had a double-double, they'd say. She's doing great. But fans who watched every minute, they saw the truth. The box score was lying. This disconnect became one of the most frustrating parts of Angel's season. It wasn't just the poor play, it was the denial of it. Stats can tell a story, but they can also spin a fairy tale. And this one was fiction from the start. Because when a double-double becomes the shield used to deflect criticism, it's no longer about basketball. It's about protecting a narrative. And eventually, the numbers caught up with the eye test. Fans realized they weren't watching a breakout season. They were watching a cover. Dash up, dot behind every stat line was a story the league didn't want to tell. But the fans already knew how. It ended, they just needed the truth to catch up to the headlines. While Angel Reese grabbed headlines in minutes, her teammates were left to deal with the fallout. Night after night, they watched plays fall apart, spacing collapse, and turnovers pile up, but the rotation never changed. 4 players grinding, in silence, doing the dirty work, hustling on defense, and sacrificing touches for the good of the team. It was demoralizing, because it became painfully clear it didn't matter how well they played. The spotlight tanned, the priority was always going to Angel. You could see the frustration in the little things. Guards hesitating to make the entry pass, wings avoiding cuts. When Angel had the ball, afraid of another misread or a turnover. The offense didn't flow, it stalled. Players were adapting not to maximize team chemistry, but to survive her presence. On the floor, every possession was a minefield, and the ones closest to the blast were her own teammates. And yet, none of them could say it out loud. Not in interviews, not in pressers, not even in post-game comments. Why? Because the operation was designed to protect the Reese narrative. Speaking out directly or indirectly risked being labeled jealous, divisive, or worse. So they bit their tongues, ran their routes, and picked up the slack. Meanwhile, Angel's mistakes were met with silence, and her most basic successes were celebrated like milestones. Veterans who had spent years earning every minute were now watching those minutes shrink while Angel stayed locked into the lineup. Younger players who had actual potential were told to wait their turn, while someone who couldn't execute a pick and roll was handed leadership duties. And the emotional weight of carrying someone else's hype, that's heavier than any physical burden, it eats away at trust. It erodes locker room morale. And fans noticed this wasn't just about fairness. It was about results. Teams win when they trust each other, when every player knows their role and believes their effort matters. But the message this season sent was loud and clear. Production comes second to promotion. Angel was allowed to hijack possessions, blow assignments, and act out on the bench without consequence. Everyone else, play perfect or sit. Eventually, even the most loyal fans of the team began to turn. They saw players with real potential getting ignored. They saw solid contributors having to fix broken plays caused by Angel's recklessness. And worst of all, they saw a team with promise being dragged down by one player's refusal or inability to adapt. Angel didn't ask for the spotlight, but she didn't reject it either. And as the season wore on, it became impossible to ignore the damage her presence was doing, not just on the scoreboard, but in the soul of the team. Because it wasn't just about bad games anymore. It was about the people forced to play around her, adjust to her, and cover for her while the cameras pretended nothing was wrong. And eventually, the silence cracked. The team didn't say it, but the way they played around her, that said everything. For months, fans gave Angel Reese the benefit of the doubt. They bought into the potential. They defended her rough games as rookie growing pains. They believed the narrative that she just needed time to adjust. But as the season spiraled, the goodwill ran out. And when the truth finally became unavoidable, when the turnovers piled up, the sideline behavior got worse, and her stat lines stopped matching her impact. Fans flipped, and they didn't hold back. It started as murmurs, a few viral tweets, some sharp Reddit threads. Then came the breakdown clips, the compilation of missed layups, out-of-control drives, and no-look passes to nowhere. The meme pages ran wild. Instagram Reels spliced her turnovers with circus music. TikTok edits mocked her celebrations after meaningless baskets. YouTube commentators started asking what no one in the league office would say out loud. How is she still starting? It wasn't hatred, was exhaustion. Exhaustion from watching the same mistakes over and over while the media kept acting like everything was fine. Fans of the team were especially fed up. They watched their squad fall apart while one player kept getting protected. And worse, they watched as Reese's defenders online framed every criticism as personal. But this wasn't personal. It was basketball. And the product on the court wasn't cutting it. Even neutral fans started joining the conversation. People who didn't root for the Sky, who had no skin in the game, couldn't believe what they were seeing. They were stunned that someone with so many flaws in her game was being pushed as a cornerstone. They weren't mad that she struggled, they were mad that the league refused to acknowledge it. Because in sports, fans don't mind a player falling short. What they hate is being lied to about it. The worst part, Angel's biggest supporters unintentionally made it worse. Every time someone tried to defend her with surface-level stats, but she had 14 and 12, they triggered a tidal wave of receipts. People pulled up her turnovers, her plus minutes, her viral outbursts, her missed defensive rotations, and when those same fans played the race card or cried haters, it only added fuel to the fire. The conversation stopped being about improvement and started being about credibility. And that's when the tone shifted from criticism to full-on public roasting. This wasn't just a fan base upset with performance. It became a case study in what happens when marketing gets too far ahead of reality. Angel became a symbol of media spin, of forced narratives, of branding over basketball. And for fans who actually care about the game, that was unforgivable. By the final weeks of the season, the tide had fully turned. You couldn't scroll through social media without seeing a new clip, a fresh meme, or another fan saying, "I tried to support her, but enough is enough." And just like that, the internet gave its verdict. The hype was gone. The grace period was over, and the reckoning had arrived. Angel Reese came into the league with headlines calling her the future. She had the endorsements, the interviews, the marketing push. The WNBA plastered her face on promotional material, sold her story as one of grit, glam, and greatness, and placed her in the center of a brand new spotlight. For a while, it worked. She was marketable, controversial, and always trending. But as the season unfolded, the gap between her image and her impact widened eventually snapped. By the end, Angel wasn't the face of the league. She was the face of everything that had gone wrong with its hype machine. This wasn't about one player failing, it was about how the league mishandled her rise. Instead of protecting her development, they forced her into a role she wasn't ready for. Instead of building her confidence quietly, they pushed her into the spotlight and made every stumble a headline. And as the pressure mounted, Angel cracked, not once or twice but consistently, in performance, in professionalism. In poise. Her season became a cautionary tale. The games were filled with breakdowns, turnovers, blown assignments, offensive misfires. The sidelines were filled with drama, clipboard slaps, taunting opponents, emotional outbursts. Off the court, She stayed in the headlines for the wrong reasons, and yet the league kept promoting her as if none of it mattered. That disconnect between what fans saw and what the league insisted they believe created one of the biggest trust gaps in recent WNBA memory. Players around the league took notice, so did coaches. So did broadcasters, who began to tiptoe around the topic, unsure whether to speak the truth or stay on script. And fans, they weren't tiptoeing anymore. They had seen enough. The final games of the season weren't just losses, they were statements. The message was clear. Angel Reese was hurting her team. And the longer the league pretended otherwise, the more damage it did to its own credibility. At some point, the WNBA has to ask the hard questions. Does star power mean more than performance? Are viral moments worth more than winning basketball? And most importantly, how long can a league build around a player who consistently proves she's not ready for the responsibility? Angel still has time. She's young, talented, and capable of turning things around. But that redemption can only happen if the illusion finally dies. If the media stops shielding her, if coaches stop enabling her, if teammates are allowed to stop tiptoeing around her mistakes, only then can the real work begin. Because right now, Angel Reese isn't inspiring the next generation. She's warning them. Warning them what happens when hype replaces humility, when branding overrides basketball, and when the system protects image more than truth. She was supposed to be the future of the WNBA. Instead, she's become its biggest question mark. And the only thing worse than a disappointing rookie season is pretending it never happened. Angel Reese's rookie season was never supposed to end like this. What started as a celebrated arrival quickly spiraled into a season defined by turnovers, tension, and truth that could no longer be ignored. The league tried to package her as the next big thing, but fans saw the reality unfold, game-by-game chaotic play, emotional outbursts, and a refusal to grow where it mattered most on the court. This wasn't about rooting against her. Fans wanted to believe. They wanted the highlight reels to be real. But when every stat came with an asterisk and every game felt like damage control, support turned into scrutiny. And once the curtain dropped, there was no turning back. Angel Reese still has time to rewrite her story. But that journey can't begin until the excuses end. She needs to listen, evolve, and accept that charisma alone won't carry her in a league built on discipline and performance. The hype has faded. The forgiveness has run thin. And now, all that's left is the work. If Angel truly wants to be a star, it's not about branding anymore. It's about basketball. And right now, she's got a lot to prove.